I arrived alone, walking slower than I used to, but still upright. It was a spring afternoon in Atlanta, warm enough to make my blouse cling a little under my jacket. I clutched my handmade quilted purse. Every stitch in that bag had a memory tied to it. Around me, folks floated in silk, linen, velvet. Laughter bounced off crystal chandeliers. A jazz quartet played something smooth, familiar. White roses spilled across the entrance like a magazine shoot. I stood still for a moment, watching it all. Everyone else had a designer clutch, some with initials I couldn't even pronounce. I'd helped pay for this wedding, extra hours cleaning at the hospital even after I'd retired, clipping coupons, canceling cable, pretending my arthritis didn't flare up just to babysit Demarius's kids for free, but I never asked for credit, didn't put my name on no registry, didn't want a spotlight. Still, I felt it, that ache, like pride laced with invisibility. People smiled politely, but passed by like I was part of the decor. My voice faded in their world. Maya Angelou once said, "I come as one, but stand as 10,000. That's what I felt walking in. But it's hard to stand tall when no one's looking. The reception table had a soft glow. The woman behind it smiled, flipping through cards. Name? Claudina Merriweather, I answered, tucking my purse under my arm. She blinked, then handed me a card with a little hesitation. My hand froze midair. There it was, my name, printed neat and clear, but right underneath, guest, fake mother. My ears rang. The jazz blurred into static. I stood there, blinking at the card like it might change if I stared hard enough. A couple behind me cleared their throats. The woman leaned to whisper something to her date. I felt the heat crawl up my neck. The card felt heavier than gold, but colder than ice. I forced a smile, the kind you give to keep from crying in public. Took the card. Walked slowly, heels tapping soft on marble, toward the assigned table. The flowers along the way blurred like watercolor. My legs moved, but my chest? Hollow. In that moment, my soul didn't just sink, it hit rock bottom. The table sat near the restrooms, tucked behind a potted plant like I was some afterthought. I looked up front. There she was. The new wife's mother. Hair perfect, dress shimmering, seated center like royalty. My chair squeaked when I pulled it out. A few guests turned. One woman looked me over like she couldn't figure out if I belonged or was setting up the desserts. Napkins folded into elegant swans perched at every place setting. Except mine. Mine was a plain square, folded like a cafeteria lunch. I sat, slowly, back straight. Is this my son's doing? I asked myself silently. Or someone else's petty hand? The couple next to me murmured about the bride's dress. Someone snapped a photo, flash too bright. I nodded at the waiter who poured my water without saying a word. And then I remembered something from back home. The church mothers. They always knew when something wasn't right, sat in silence, observed. And when the time came, they'd speak with fire. A week before, Demarius called. Told me not to bring up old stuff at the wedding. Said he didn't want drama. I thought he meant family gossip, his half-brother and that mess with child support. I didn't think he meant me. I sat, listening to my own heart ask questions. Did he do this? Did he know? Silence feels like dignity, but it also feels like surrender. I didn't eat. I didn't sip the water. I sat and looked, not in bitterness, but in clarity. I took mental snapshots. Who sat where? Who laughed? Who avoided my gaze? I wasn't going to forget. James Baldwin once said, "You have to decide who you are and force the world to deal with you, not with its idea of you." Well, it was time they dealt with me. Across the room, Demarius looked up. Our eyes met. He flinched, looked away, whispered something to the woman next to him. If I'm a fake mother, then why does his guilt look so real? I picked up the plain napkin with trembling hands, folded it slowly into a swan, just like the others. The crease wasn't perfect, but the statement was clear. And that's when I decided to stop pretending not to see. I didn't know it then, but the first crack in the perfect wedding had already begun. The reception had slipped into cocktail hour. People laughed louder now, the drinks loosening collars and mouths. I was still at my table, the folded napkin swan sitting proud in my purse. That's when I felt a presence approach, not the soft searching kind, but one that tread careful like stepping over a mess you don't want to claim. "Hey, Ma." His voice was familiar. But the tone, it wasn't the boy who used to whisper, "Mama, I love you," after nightmares. It was clipped, professional. Demarius didn't bend down or hug me. He didn't even sit, just stood there, hands in his pockets, glancing sideways like someone watching the clock more than the person. "Look," he said, tapping his watch like it owed him something, "about the name card thing. It was a mix-up, all right. The planner got stuff wrong. You're reading too much into it." Reading too much. I looked at him, and for a moment, I didn't see my baby boy. I saw a man standing tall in a suit tailored for someone else's approval, not mine. "Honest mistake," he added, shrugging. "Let's not blow it up. Big day, yeah?" Behind him, Mozella stood in her glittered gown. Arms crossed, chin tilted, smile smug, like she'd just watched a dog obey. He didn't wait for my reply. Just nodded and walked off, leaving his cologne, but not his warmth. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Maya Angelou said that. I never forgot it. I stood to stretch my legs, wandered toward the edge of the room where the lighting was dimmer, quieter. That's when I felt a tug on my sleeve. "Girl," Aunt Velma whispered, eyes sharp like she already knew what I'd just swallowed whole. "They got you sitting back here like a church usher. I knew something was foul when I saw her mama glide in like she birthed that boy." Velma was older than me by 10 years, but her mouth could cut steel. She leaned in close, dropping her voice low. "You didn't hear it from me," she said, "but that Mozella been picking at your boy's mind like she's trying to scrub you out his memory." I blinked. "Said you were the woman who raised him, but not the one who fits the picture. The image," she added, rolling her eyes. "She told somebody that plain as day, loud enough for the walls to hear." I swallowed hard, throat dry as dust. "She's been calling all the shots, planner, colors, venue, even where you sit. This ain't no mistake, sugar. This was done." Velma wasn't the emotional type. If she said it, she meant it. And suddenly, everything clicked. The distance, the decisions, the deliberate forgetting. I nodded once. It hurt, yes, but hurt is just the skin tearing before the scar forms. Mozella's voice rang out from the speakers. Everyone turned as she took the mic at the front of the room. "I just want to say," she beamed, "how proud I am of my Demarius. And to the one who's been his guiding light, his strength, his elegance, Mama Mozella loves you, baby." Applause erupted. Some guests even stood. A camera zoomed in tight, catching her teary smile and his arm around her shoulders. No one looked back at the corner table. No one noticed me sitting still, hands folded neatly in my lap, not clapping, not crying. I remembered walking Demarius to school in the rain, soaked to the skin. How I worked the night shift just to afford his soccer cleats. The time I didn't eat so he could. The scholarships I filled out by hand while he slept. And now here I was, erased with a smile. My hands curled into fists under the tablecloth, the swan napkin brushing my knuckles. I didn't raise a son to be perfect. I raised him to be strong. And now, he's strong enough to pretend I don't exist. But I didn't leave. I didn't flinch. I just sat there, watching, memorizing. I stepped out into the hallway. Needed air more than another glass of lies. A young black waiter passed by, gave me a respectful nod. "Ma'am," he said kindly, "you doing all right?" I nodded. "You must be proud," he added. "Man like that, wedding like this. My mama passed before she saw me make something of myself. Always wished she could." I smiled at him. It didn't reach all the way, but it tried. "Some of us raise sons," I said softly. "Others raise themselves from the ashes." He blinked, then smiled back. I reached into my clutch, pulled out the only 20 I had. "Not for today," I told him, pressing it into his palm. "For your first home." He looked like he wanted to hug me, but knew better. Just nodded, eyes shining. That moment, brief as it was, stitched something back together in me. I returned to the ballroom, steadier. But when I got to my table, my name card was gone. In its place, a folded slip of paper. Moved per request. Table 9. Table 9. Same spot. Near the swinging kitchen door. And the smell of steam trays and staff chatter, they keep moving my place, but they forget. I know how to make space where none exists. I pulled the swan napkin from my purse, pressed the crease down firmer, slid it back into the fabric. A little tighter this time. And that was the moment I stopped expecting anything from anyone in that room. I stopped expecting anything. And started preparing everything. I held the glossy program in my hands, turning the pages with quiet precision. The heading, Parents of the Groom, Mr. Green, Mozella Green, stared back at me. No mention of me. My heart constricted. I coughed lightly, sliding the booklet across the seat beside me. I flipped again, faster. The pages blurred past names. Bridesmaids, ushers, ushers' mothers. Nothing. My name erased as though it had never existed. The room hummed. A lull in conversation as the cameras swung and paused. I tucked my lips shut. My pulse thundered. So many years, and they edit me out like I never belonged. Quiet now, I bent forward, fingers tapping the tablecloth. From a distance, I caught subtle shadows of movement. Mozella leaned close, murmuring something into Demarius's ear, her finger angled in my direction. He nodded, expression mild. Laughter fluttered from the bridesmaid's table, soft, conspiratorial. In that moment, memory flared back. When I taught in those crowded classrooms, students whispered about clothes, accents, mothers left behind. I smiled through it then. Now I stared, listening. The planner appeared quietly beside me, voice brittle. I'm sorry. There was an earlier draft with your name, but it was changed per request. I raised my eyes. Whose request? My voice felt cold, precise. The planner's eyes darted, her lips parting. She stammered, I don't know who requested it. I leaned back, steady. Was it Demarius's request? Or hers? Her gaze flicked past me at Mozella, whose poise flickered for just a beat. I informed her without a sound. Then it was covered, deliberately removed. Later, passing by a reception table, I overheard Delphina speaking low to a bridesmaid. She's dropped from every mention. Easier to pretend she's not even his mother. The words stabbed me. I felt betrayed not only by my son, but by everyone who let those lies pass. I straightened, inhaled deep, whispered to myself, dignity under fire is not weakness. I would not vanish quietly. Toward the back of the hall stood the photo backdrop, an elegant statue of Mozella holding Demarius. My face was missing. My pulse slammed in my ears. I gripped my cane, stepped forward, careful. The lights dimmed, voices hushed. I whispered as I approached, watch me claim my space. The room tasted heavy. Every omission makes a statement. Tonight, I'll answer it. After the photos, the speeches, the clinking of crystal glasses died down, I asked Demarius if we could talk. Just a moment, I said. Away from the crowd, away from the cameras. He hesitated, glanced back toward Mozella, then nodded. We walked out to the side garden, the spring air brushing my shoulders, cool and clean, unlike the tension sitting heavy in my chest. I turned to him slowly. Do you know how it feels to be erased at your own child's wedding? He blinked. Ma, it wasn't meant that way. I carried you through fevers with no insurance, made birthday cakes out of pancake mix when we couldn't afford nothing else. You remember the winter the heat cut off? I wrapped you in my own coat, prayed my hands wouldn't freeze overnight. I didn't come here looking for applause, Demarius, but acknowledgement? That ain't too much. He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting. This just ain't the time, Ma. Before I could say another word, Mozella came gliding over like she'd been waiting for her cue. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder. Not affection, but possession. Is everything okay here? She asked, eyebrows arched like she already knew it wasn't. I didn't answer her. I looked at Demarius. She tilted her head toward me. We really shouldn't stir up emotions tonight. Let's not make a scene. Scene? She wanted me invisible, then blamed me for being seen. I turned fully to her. You may wear white today, Mozella, but you've never had clean hands. She didn't flinch, just smiled, slow and tight, leaned in close so only I could hear. Some stories are better left untold, Ms. Green. My throat tightened. That wasn't a bride talking. That was a woman who saw power as a weapon. Later, Delphina found me near the lobby fountain and suggested we all have a family talk. Her voice had that sweet meets slick tone, like cough syrup hiding the bitterness. I stepped into the private room they'd arranged and immediately knew I wasn't meant to feel welcome. Mozella's parents sat like judges. Aunts and uncles lined the couch. Even her cousin from Baton Rouge leaned forward like he had a say. Demarius sat silent. I stood. I came here to celebrate love, not to be judged for being inconvenient. Mozella's mother folded her arms. We're simply trying to protect Demarius's future. Things are delicate right now. Delicate. They meant image, status, reputation. And somehow, I was the crack in their porcelain. I spoke anyway, because silence don't save you, it just buys the enemy more time. But everything I said fell into the room like pennies down a dry well. No echo, no bounce, just gone. The air in there was heavy with smug smiles and careful words, but not 1 ounce of grace. I left quietly, walking slower than I had in years. Just before the lights dimmed in the ballroom, I stepped outside again, found Mozella near the valet station, touching up her lipstick in the side mirror of a black SUV. I walked up beside her. You erase me one more time, I said quietly. You'll see a side of me I've kept buried for decades. I don't shout, I don't throw things. But when I move with truth. She didn't even turn her head, just rolled her eyes and kept dabbing at her gloss. That was your last chance, I whispered. I wasn't shaking. I was done shaking. The night was nearly over when a cousin slipped a USB into my hand, said, "Don't say my name if they ask." It was the early draft of the wedding video montage. In the middle, clear as daylight, there I was, younger, standing next to Demarius in his middle school cap and gown, holding his certificate with both hands, his smile beaming at me like sunlight. I hit pause. In the final cut they showed tonight, that moment was gone, cut out, like history could be rewritten. My throat went dry, but I didn't cry. I texted my lawyer. They wanted to erase me in silence. Now, I'll let the truth speak. Some stories are better left untold, she said. I say, some truths are too powerful to bury. I slipped into the dark corner of my living room, phone pressed close to my chest. The draft video loaded slow, frames flickering like a bad memory. I watched, cropped faces, blurred edges, pictures of me with Demarius as a child, school recitals, baseball games, were doctored, shadows where I stood. Then replaced. Mozella's family pictures in clean clarity. My name, my moments, erased. This isn't just erasure. This is revision. My hands trembled. I replayed. I paused. My eyes hardened. I sent the screenshot to Aunt Velma. They've written me out. Seconds later. Then write yourself back in. I breathed, caught the sting in my throat, and pressed send. Back in the ballroom, a hush fell. Mozella's father stood, raised his glass, voice booming. We all owe thanks to the woman who's raised my son right. To Mozella, for standing by him, for guiding him to this day. The guests erupted in applause. Demarius glanced toward me, awkward, unsure. I pushed from my chair, walked steadily toward the stage. No microphone, no formal invitation, just a mother whose silence had reached its limit. I cleared my throat. Every man at this table knows who watched over him before the applause came, I said, voice low but clear. Eyes turned, plates paused, some nodded, others fidgeted. My pulse high, my body ready to flee, but I stood firm. My first public pushback had arrived. It wasn't grand, it was bare truth. But it cut deep. The applause faltered. Cameras shifted, the mask cracked. After the toast, Mozella cornered me near the service door. Her eyes narrower than usual. "You're lucky we even let you in," she hissed, like a judge passing sentence. Her breath smelled of wine and control. I faced her square. "I'm not here because you let me in. I'm here because I built this man's life." Her jaw twitched. She raised a finger, threatened consequences. I thought, they're not ready for the woman they've just awakened. I found Demarius in a mirror-lit hallway, adjusting his bow tie. The corridor looped behind him, a pale halo of light. His reflection jittered. I stepped in front. "Son, do you know what they've done?" He paused, eyes cast down. "I asked them to tone it down. I didn't know they'd go this far." His voice cracked. I swallowed, looked him in the eye. "Tone it down? They've turned me invisible." He stepped away, not angry, not defiant, just distant. I realized then I'd stopped hoping he'd take my side. That mark broke something inside me, but also freed me. I'd move forward, alone if I had to. As the newlyweds departed, the ballroom emptied around me. I remained, swan napkin in hand. With trembling fingers, I unfolded it flat, then tore it in half. The crease sharp in my palm, a silent ritual of reclaiming what they tried to destroy. They think the story ends here. They have no idea what begins now. I lingered near the buffet table, the chatter swirling like wind around me. That's when I saw Kiona Ray tugging at her mother's dress. Her little voice floated clear enough. "Why don't you say Grandma?" Silence snapped. Heads turned. Conversations froze. In that second, I felt every eye on me, and the weight of being unseen settled deeper. My heart lurched. The child knows. I leaned forward, voice soft but firm. "I am your grandma, and I will always be." The room strained to breathe. Minutes later, behind the curtain by the service exit, I found Torrance waiting, face tight with tension. He slipped a phone into my hand. "I didn't want trouble," he said, voice hushed. "But they laugh. About you. Name cards, jokes, staff mocking the fake mother." He pressed play. A shaky recording. Whispers, laughter, clipped phrases. My eyes stung. I swallowed it down. I whispered thanks, promised his name would never be outed. I held the phone close, the betrayal streaming in real time. In the dining hall, the gospel choir rose in harmony, a hymn about family, faith, foundation. But then the soloist changed a line mid-song. "Love built us strong, not by blood, but by birthright." The room caught it. My chest tightened. The sting felt personal, as though someone aimed it straight at me. I looked toward Mozella. She stood framed in dim light, her lips curved in a satisfied smirk. Her influence ran deeper than I'd thought. Back at my seat, I opened my contacts list. Drafted messages. To old friends, a civil rights attorney, a journalist I trusted. I scrolled through pieces of the video draft, the recording Torrance gave me, the photographic anomalies. I rehearsed how I'd present this, not out of vengeance, but justice. "I will not be faint in the darkest hour," I whispered to myself, steadying my voice. Timing mattered. Exposure would matter more. When I rose for water, the hall seemed sharper, more aware. Around a corner, I caught Delphina and Mozella whispering, urgent tones, narrowed eyes. They saw I caught them. My pulse quickened. I gripped the swan napkin in my clutch. It felt like sharpened steel now. They talk in corners now. The blindfold is slipping. The morning sun barely cracked through the stained glass windows of the church hall. I arrived early, heels tapping softly against the linoleum, breath held tight in my chest. This wasn't just another family gathering. It was a reckoning. In my purse, my phone, the flash drive, and a manila folder of printed screenshots. As I stepped through the door, conversations halted. Folks turned, paused mid-bite, eyes bouncing between my hands and my face. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I just stood there, scanning the room, feeling each stare weigh on my spine like bricks. I whispered to myself, steady and quiet, "This is not revenge. This is reveal." One of the event staff, same manager from the reception, hurried over. "Miss Merriweather, there's been an update," he said, extending a small white card with both hands like it was an offering. I took it slowly. Printed in bold letters, Claudina Merriweather, mother of the groom. A correction from upstairs, he said with a shrug, eyes flickering toward the main table. Mozella caught sight of it. Her smile dimmed like someone pulled the plug behind her eyes. I didn't hold it up or thank him. I simply slid the card into my purse. Some things speak louder when left unsaid. Later, when the room buzzed back to life with small talk and Motown on low, I walked to the DJ table. "Cut the music," I told him, firm but polite. Then I stepped to the front and connected my phone to the screen. The first clip played, shaky footage of staff mocking me, calling me the fake mother. Some guests gasped, others looked down. I let it linger. Then came the silent draft of the wedding video, images of Mozella's family smiling wide, photos carefully curated. I let it roll for 10 seconds before pausing on one frame, a boy in cap and gown, next to me, cropped to the edge of erasure. I spoke slowly. "Yeah, you couldn't bury me. You only delayed the bloom." The next video cued, the reception credits, the thank you montage. Names rolled like a movie. Wedding planner, decorator, caterer, photographer. Then it ended. No mention of me. They erased the hands that held him, the voice that prayed over him, the name that paid for that cap and gown. Mozella shot up, eyes blazing. "You're humiliating us in our home!" I didn't flinch. "You thought I'd stay silent forever," I said, "but you forgot. I raised Demarius before any of you knew who he was." Demarius rose from his chair beside her. He didn't say a word, but he didn't sit back down either. He walked over and stood beside me, not touching, just close enough. Delphina's jaw clenched. Eben Sr. shifted in his seat, rubbing his temple. The room cracked. You could feel it. Some guests nodded. Others looked around, waiting to see which way the tide would roll. Just then, the side door creaked open. Aunt Velma stepped in, holding a thick bundle of letters and manila folders, her church shoes clicking with each step. I turned slightly, eyes on her. She raised the documents and said nothing. I took the microphone, held it still. My voice echoed. She walked in with the past they tried to bury. Watch every secret bleed now. I walked to the podium without waiting to be called. My heels tapped slow, each step echoing off the church hall's painted walls. I slipped my hand into my jacket and pulled out the folded card. For a moment I held it up, blank side facing them. Then I turned it. Mother of the groom. The letters gleamed under the dim light. No applause, no murmurs, just a quiet, collective breath. Inside, my voice whispered, "This card was never a gift. It was a deadline." I didn't smile. I didn't wait. I began. I reached into my bag and took out a sheaf of papers. Legal documents. This is the deed to the house on Holbrook Avenue. My name. My payments. My sweat. Gasps trickled from the back. Some turned to Mozella. Her hand twitched near her glass. Twist S15 came like a crack of thunder. I laid the deed on the podium like a stone dropped in still water. Then I unfolded an old letter, edges yellowed with time. "To Demarius, on your first birthday," I read aloud. "I gave you roots so you could grow wings." The room quieted further. I tapped my phone. Video clips flickered across the screen. Staff mocking me. The name Fake Mother whispered with laughter. I looked straight at Mozella. "You built an image," I said. "I built a life." Demarius's face tightened like a knot pulled too hard. I reached again into my bag and held up a small bound packet of canceled checks. Every tuition, every doctor's bill, every winter coat, all paid by me. This, I placed the stack in front of Mozella, is the last check I'll ever write in your name. Twist S16 landed heavy. A few guests shifted, murmuring. Some whispered prayers under their breath. I turned back to the DJ. "Play this," I said. The screens lit up with the full wedding video, the raw version, the behind-the-scenes clips, the erased images restored. People stared. Social masks slipped like rain off glass. The laughter from those hidden recordings echoed in the hall. Some looked away. Some covered their mouths. Twist S17 unfurled itself, my invisibility becoming my vindication. Mozella trembled. Her lips parted, but no words came. Demarius stepped closer and placed his hand lightly on my shoulder. He didn't speak, but his presence drew a line in the room. Eben Sr. stood quietly, eyes down. Delphina's lips pressed tight. Guests shifted in their seats, alliances breaking, old judgments cracking. I spoke again, softly but clear. I accept respect, not apologies. And I won't wait for either. The hall felt different, like the air had changed. Eyes that once slid past me now stayed fixed. Whispers turned to stillness. For the first time all evening, I felt the floor beneath me solid. As I left the podium, Aunt Velma stepped forward, envelope in hand. Confidential. Green family files, stamped across the front. She slipped it to me. I opened it slightly and glimpsed deeds, contracts, letters, evidence I hadn't even known existed. They opened the doors. My voiceover rolled in my mind. I just walked through them. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my own breath instead of a buzzing hall. Sunlight came through the curtains of my small Jackson home in soft strips. My phone was already lit with messages and missed calls, names from the reception, numbers I hadn't seen in years, support, shock, awe. My kitchen smelled like coffee, but I hadn't poured a cup yet. I sat at the table, palms flat, remembering the weight of last night. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like standing in a quiet field after thunder. Truth is not loud, I whispered. It is the silence after the roar. By noon, the quiet field turned into a river. Clips of the hall reveal flooded church groups and local news segments. Black church networks shared the video with captions, "Finally she was seen," and "She deserved that respect." My voicemail filled with familiar voices, old students, church sisters, neighbors, people who had once looked away now spoke out. I thought back to a Sunday sermon. Your name is not in people's hands. That line steadied me as I read each message. No one could erase me now. My existence was no longer a whisper. Mazella's world began to shrink. Friends stopped tagging her. Invitations faded. I heard Delphina had written a half-apology post, retracting her praise of the wedding's perfect unity. In the late afternoon, Demarius came by, standing awkwardly at my kitchen doorway. I never meant it like that, he said, voice low. I stirred sugar into my tea without looking up. Intentions matter less than actions, son. He reached across the table and laid his hand on mine. Warm, trembling. In that touch, heartbreak and relief braided together. That night, I pulled out my small box of keepsakes, the swan napkin, the quilt squares, the letters. I pinned them in a shadow box above the kitchen table, my own quiet crown. I drafted a public letter for the paper, not to beg, to give courage. I called Torrance, the young waiter, and told him, "You were right to stand." I told him I'd cover his recommendation if anyone tried to punish him. I also decided to set up a scholarship with part of the wedding surplus, no longer asking to be recognized, but planting something that would outlast me. As evening came, I stepped outside under the magnolia tree. The sky was pink and gold. I folded a fresh napkin into a swan, crisp and perfect, the motion steady as breathing. I raised it toward the branches and held it there. They tried to erase me, I heard myself say, so I taught them how to read me. Then the final truth rose clear inside me, the last twist that needed no witness. I don't need to be accepted. I have already reclaimed myself,